Welcome back, my business besties. Today, I want to talk about a time that was really hard for me. I was really close to going bankrupt. This was about 14 years ago. I want you to know that if you're going through something right now, financial or otherwise, I know it can feel like it's never going to end, but I want to remind you that it is temporary. My future self, which is the self talking to you now, 15 years has passed and now I can talk about lessons and hindsight, which feels so good on the other side. So just know, like your future self is reminding you that it will be okay. I promise. I really come from a place that everything happens for a reason. Before I tell you about the time where I almost went bankrupt, I want to rewind and tell you about the time that I moved to Russia for love and closed my practice. I was 27. I had been in solo practice for 2 years and I was full. And then I met someone amazing, or who I thought was amazing, and I felt madly in love. One day he turned to me and he said, he was Russian, but born in Canada. And he said, my father is a very wealthy man in Russia and he wants me to go work for him. I feel like if I don't do this, I will regret it. Do you want to come? And I was 27, madly in love. Like, what do you do? So I went. I closed my practice and I went. And I still remember asking my supervisor, should I say no? And he goes off and there's the love of my life gone, or should I go? And guess what my supervisor said? He said, Nicole, you can always build a practice, but follow your heart here. I can tell how in love you are. I think you should go. So I gave all my clients to somebody else and I was whisked away. Unfortunately, it did not work out, but I want to tell you about my experience there. His father was an oligarch. Do you know what an oligarch is? Google it. Like the wealth that I experienced in Russia and Moscow for the 6 months that we lived there was unreal. We were traveling to Hawaii and Turkey. His father would bring his personal trainer on our trips because why not when you have all the money in the world? And it was the first time that I really experienced luxury, but in a way that it wasn't mine, right? So here I am. And what happened was my boyfriend at the time started treating me really badly, like really, really, really badly. And now, oh my God, I sold my practice. I'm in Russia. All my friends are terrified because I'm telling them these horrible stories of like verbal abuse, just like really, really bad. And I have nothing. I've given it all away. And I vividly remember being like, am I going to walk away from this? Like, if I'm really honest, it is hard coming from a trailer park and then being handed this wealth, this wealthy lifestyle. I was like, do I want this life when it comes with suppressing myself and it comes with not being happy? Can I really walk away? And I was on the phone with my girlfriend and she said, Nicole, I believe that one day you'll make your very own millions. And I like laughed. I was like, I love you, but don't be ridiculous. But she filled my confidence and my heart and I left. I had no money to leave, guys. No money, not even for a plane. So I had to kind of finesse the situation. I got home safe. I vividly remember landing in the airport and I didn't own anything. And I remember walking through the Pearson Airport in Toronto. And when you land, if you've ever been there, the doors open for you and you're greeted by Toronto. And these doors opened and I felt like the richest person in the world because I walked away from something that was pretty bad for my soul. I'd never felt richer, but I had nothing. Fast forward, and you may have heard this story. So I had no bed. I had no car. I had no food. Fast forward, and I had a chair and an air mattress. And because I hadn't saved, I wasn't smart. I started doing some work for a doctor and he really liked my work. I was doing assessments. You may have heard the story where it was in that moment that I said, hey, thank you so much for being happy with my work. I'm also really enjoying this partnership. Do you know any other doctors that need a psychologist? And he said, Nicole, that's so funny. I literally just had lunch with somebody and they were asking me, do you know of a psychologist? I don't know why you didn't pop to my head. I'm so glad you called. And the rest is history until I almost went bankrupt. We're not even there yet. But the abundance started flowing and I took all of my emotional pain. And you know what's funny? I was also pissed off at myself for making such a bad choice. Like, why would you leave everything for that person? Like, did you not see it, Nicole? You're a therapist. So I took all of that anger, that fear, and I funneled it into fuel. Write that down. Fear is fuel. Fear is fuel. And I threw myself into work, whether that was healthy or not. And the money started coming. I was banging out assessments. And then guess what? I was making within a year, like I didn't need him anymore. Like I almost wanted to prove, like, you know what? I don't need you. I was making $20,000 a month in solo. That was big bucks in 2010. That was like $250,000, little old me. Oh my gosh. I was like, I thought I had reached the top. So guess what I did? I started spending. I literally thought, I don't know why, because I was not business savvy, that once you reach the top, which I thought was $250,000, you just stay there. I just thought, okay, well, what can go wrong? What can go wrong? It's flowing in, banging out the assessments. Life is good. So then I bought a Mercedes. And then I bought my first luxury purse and I'm like, living the life, don't need a man, life is amazing. And then I made the biggest mistake of all. And I bought a penthouse, which is a very, very expensive move. The problem was the money was leaving my account as fast as it was coming. However, I wasn't paying attention. Do you ever do this? In my head, I would do the math. Well, I did this many assessments this week. Okay, perfect. So I know generally I'm making this much, but I wasn't checking the bank. And because I was spending so much, my admin at the time finally said, hey, Nicole, we're in overdraft. And I'm like, what? And then a big thing happened. If you're Canadian and you ever did motor vehicle accident assessments, you remember this day. There was a legislation change in our government, guys, where they basically cut out a big chunk of what they were covering and it impacted the referrals and they were gone. All the referrals were gone. The tap had stopped, but I was this single person. And if you're single too, the expenses are just you, right? When two people live in the same place, it's like less expensive. And I had no money flowing in. I had all the work ethic in the world, but I had nowhere to put it. Now I was seeing the therapy clients, but it wasn't bringing in the money now to fuel the lifestyle that I had. I remember having no money and worse, bills were coming out and I didn't have money to pay them. I had burned through my Visa. I had burned through line of credit. I was done. There was no more approvals. No bank wanted to talk to me. And then I got a $70,000 bill from the CRA, which is our IRS. Why? It gets worse. I hadn't saved for taxes. And now I get this massive bill. I'm 30 years old, no help from my parents. My mom she's not super supportive at all. She has her own issues, so she doesn't really even know what's happening in my life. And then the CRA doesn't care, right? They're like, okay, so you owe this massive bill because I wasn't incorporated. As soon as the money is flowing and you have that 70 to 80K profit, please incorporate, right? And then the CRA tells me, and you know when you feel broken and then life kicks you right in the teeth? And this was the moment. We're going to have to put a lien on your condo. Do you know what that is? I didn't even know what it was. I was like, okay, what is that? Well, that means that the government says it's a really bad thing for your credit, that we're going to take a portion if you ever sell because you owe us money. So now we're going to put this huge red X on your credit, which was really bad. And I also remember needing to eat. I went to the grocery store. I had my Visa in hand and I remember thinking, oh God, I don't know if this is going to go through. And I put it through and I'm standing there waiting for it to say approved or declined and I'm not breathing. And I remember feeling embarrassed already before it even happened. And I remember also thinking, oh no, what happens? Do I have to like go put my groceries away? Like the person behind me is probably going to judge me. Like what do I do? I've had those devastating moments. And I'll tell you that if you have a partner, like number one, I hope you never go through this. This is why I'm sharing this. And don't worry, there's a happy ending as we know. I did it single. I've never felt so alone. I left that unhealthy relationship. I was so proud. I made all that money. I was so proud, but what the heck? How did I do all this wrong? And here I am sleeping in bed and I'm trying to sleep and just feeling so alone, so broken and so lost. In that moment, it felt like it was never going to end. And I literally, as the person standing before you now, I'm still amazed that I got out of that. Here's what it looked like in black and white. I was $70,000 in debt and I owed $70,000 to the government. It was bad. But the one thing that this kick in the teeth didn't take from me was my I will do whatever it takes attitude. And so I did. I said, okay, I know I have the work ethic and I have a master's degree. That's all. I don't have any marketing or definitely no business sense or clearly no financial sense, but I'm going to work hard and I'm going to get myself out of this. This experience broke me. But here's the thing, the good news, it actually broke me open, which I really needed. There was so much negative money conversations I had. I think subconsciously, guys, because I came from the trailer park, because my mom was an addict, there was a part of me that didn't want to make the money because I knew I would feel really bad. How could I have all this money and not give it to her? I would give her some, but then guess where it would go? To all the wrong places. It was really hard and confusing. So I kept making it and I kept losing it. I would get this luxury life and then it was with the wrong person. And then I would make all this money and then I just didn't know what to do with it. This was like my thermostat. You've heard that analogy before? Kind of like your weight set point. Have you ever heard that? Like we all have like a set weight. We can lose weight, we can gain weight, but we're generally like the same, give or take, the same weight. It's kind of like wealth, that my set point was so low that if I brought it in, I found a way to lose it until this broke me open. I hit rock bottom. I was completely alone and it was the best thing that happened. I had to move out of my penthouse. I had to rent it out. I could not afford it. I had to move in with a friend and sleep in her 8-year-old's room. I don't know how I got here. I just remember thinking like, what just happened? But I leaned into the fuel. I leaned into whatever it takes. Next month, I rented a place. I didn't have a cleaning lady anymore. This would look nothing like my penthouse, but I didn't care. I worked hard. And you know what else happened? I went to therapy. But I went to therapy really open this time to really go deep. That's when I found yoga. I've been obsessed with it since. I was meditating. I was working through all my stuff. And then guess what happened? Oh my gosh, I'm in less debt and less debt and less debt and less debt. I'm almost out of debt. I ended up finally paying off the lien. Oh my gosh, I sold the penthouse, not for a profit, but it's off my plate now. Thank goodness. I'm debt free. Oh, and I feel so good in the tiniest little apartment that was kind of ugly. It had, it's hard going from luxury to not, with no cleaning lady. I know that's a first world problem, but it felt like a lot. But I was the happiest and most grounded. I was doing all the therapy, connecting to my body, and then walks in Dan, the love of my life, the man who taught me what love was. I didn't know secure attachment until I met him. A key point here is it wasn't until I was out of debt and in a high vibe place that I met my match. I had to heal my inner child, my nervous system, my financial mess. And it wasn't until then that I could attract a vibrational match. But I was so high vibe that I attracted this type of love that actually taught me to love myself. I have not been in debt since. And I'll tell you, I have more saved than I will ever need. I don't have any debt. I could retire today, all because that happened. And I work because I freaking love it. And I get to hang out with my business besties and I feel like I need to be making a difference. So here I am. So just know there's so much magic on the other side. Come back and circle back to this if you ever need to listen to it. The biggest lesson that I want you to leave with today is this: cash is king. I did 2 things differently that made a huge difference. Now I check my bank account. Now I pay somebody like an admin, and throughout my whole group practice, I had somebody on top of what was coming in, what was coming out. But number one, I actually like to pay all my therapists weekly back then because I didn't want my bank account to be inflated. That could be costly because here I am paying a person to do payroll and then I had a payroll person too. I had my admin do the basic admin stuff and a payroll person. So now I actually pay my team every 2 weeks because it's just less cost to a bookkeeper or a payroll person. But figure out what works for you. But what I needed back then is not an inflated bank account because that's not all your money, right? That wasn't all. As I grew into a group practice, that wasn't my money. 60%, that's a lot. That's not yours, that's theirs. So I got it out of there quickly. That made a big difference for me. But more than that, I tracked all of my expenses so closely and I would only track cash. So here's what I mean. At the end of the month, when your accountant tells you, and please be working with a bookkeeper or accountant so you know the profit, the end of the month would come and Jackie would say, okay, Nicole, you have 15,000 in profit. Then I would take that profit and I would invest it with who I call now my wealth manager, basically an investment guy. If I needed it back to feed the business, I would pull it back out and feed the business, but at least it's making me 10%. Okay. Now here's what's key. When I say profit, I don't mean accounting profit. I mean cash. You want to check with your accountant when they say profit, is that accrued? Here's what I mean. That got me into trouble. So my accountant back then, different accountant, I also let him go because he was not taking care of me, didn't tell me I should incorporate when he should have, all those things. I looked and profit was coming, but it wasn't hitting my bank yet. For my Americans, if you're in network, or my Canadians, if you do VA, WSIB, it can take a month or more to get paid. But that was showing up in QuickBooks, my accounting software, as profit, but it wasn't in my bank. Do you see that? So from that moment forward, and I will never change it, I do cash flow calculations. So what I mean is at the end of the month, Jackie, my accountant, says, this is how much cash money, my friend, cash is king, cash you have left. If it's not in my bank, I do not count it. If you do things that you get paid later, yeah, you know they're coming, but don't count them. What if they're not coming? Or what if something changes and they come to a halt? Just cash, just calculate cash. And the other thing I do, this is a bonus one. I said there's 2, there's actually 3. This might be a bit neurotic, but you know how when you come out of something, you like overdo it? This is me overdoing it. My whole group practice career, I always had saved next month's expenses. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say your monthly expenses are $20,000 a month, okay? They could be high. I had a huge office. My expenses were way more than that, but let's just go with 20,000. So we're halfway through this month. I always made sure I had the 20,000 in my bank before the month came. So at the end of this month, Jackie says, okay, Nicole, so you've got 15K in cash profit. Do you want me to move it to your investment? But she was also calculating next month's expenses. So before she told me my quote profit, which was cash, she would be calculating, okay, Nicole, it's the end of the month. You've got 15K cash extra, and we have the 20,000 already, keyword, already in the bank to cover your fixed expenses. Now, keyword, these were fixed expenses. I'm not factoring in to pay the therapist because that's like money flowing in that I keep a portion of. But my fixed expenses, I always had the money in there for the rent, for Jane, for everything that I have to pay that's coming out on my visa, whether I like it or not. I would have in there. It's all in there. It's the first of the month and I already have it paid. And then I only count cash. Then I invest that cash. And for a lot of you, you're like, what cash? I get it. Trust me. The cash is coming and your group practice will be less hungry soon. I know it's so hungry. It's eating the cash, isn't it? Eventually, though, you will have the money to give to the investor and that money will make you money. And then eventually you will be able to create what I call this golden goose, this investment that is growing for you. And eventually my end goal and the ultimate financial freedom is this golden goose. Let's say you have $500,000 saved, $1 million saved, $5 million saved. Guess what? That's a big, chubby goose that's going to feed you for your life, because then you're just living off of the 10%. Do you see that? You have so much money saved, you're not even touching it. You're just living off of the 10%, and you will get there. Because if I can get there so broken with nothing, so can you. I hope this inspires you, and I will see you next week.